All right, this is the rational number project, decimals. We're starting with lesson number 9. I can visualize decimals as fractions. So let's do a quick fraction recap. The top of your fraction, remember, is called your numerator. And the bottom of your fraction, remember, is called your denominator. And remember that the numerator, the top number, tells us how much we have, and the bottom number tells us how many pieces our thing is cut into. All right, so let's pretend that we need to figure out which one of these two fractions is bigger. As you probably remember, there were a few ways we did this. We decided we compared them to half. We looked if they had the same numerator. We could decide based on their denominator if they had the same denominator. We looked based on their numerator. And if they didn't have either, we had two choices. One, we could change them so that they had the same denominator. We could do that here. Or when we found that they were very close, like these two are, that we compared the piece that's missing. So let's do that. This one's missing a piece that's 1/5 large, and this one's missing a piece that's 1/7 large. So picture your pizza. 1/5 of your pizza is missing. Picture your other pizza, 1/7 of that is missing. Which piece is larger, 1/5 or 1/7? Well, now we have the same numerators, so we can compare denominators. This I'm sharing that pizza with 7 people. This I'm sharing with 5 people. The one that we cut into just 5 pieces is going to have much larger pieces. So this piece that's missing is larger than this piece that's missing. If the larger piece is missing, then the stuff that's there is smaller, right? So this is the smaller fraction. This one wins. 6/7 is larger. I want you to pause the video quick and order these fractions from smallest to largest. All right, so hopefully you used some of those tricks that you knew before. 87/100 is the only one bigger than half, so we're going to put that as the largest one. 49/100 is really close to half, so I'm going to put that kind of in the middle. And then these two I know are less than half, but I don't know which one's bigger because they have different denominators. So in this case, since 10 so easily makes 100, let's go ahead and change that denominator. We'll multiply the denominator by 10, which makes 100. So we have to multiply the numerator by 10, which makes 30. 30/100 is much bigger than 15/100, so 15/100 is the smallest, and 30/100, or 3/10, goes next. You'll notice these ones all had denominators of tenths or 100ths. When we're talking about decimals, we are always using tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths. So decimals are always written with 10, 100, 1,000, or something like that on the bottom. So when we're going from a fraction to a decimal, or actually a decimal to a fraction, we'll always have a denominator of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000, and normally we don't go past the millions. Think about when you might use decimals in your everyday life. Money, for example, every cent is actually out of 100 because a dollar has 100 pennies. Metric measurement, maybe baseball stats or track statistics. Let's go on. Okay, so when we're thinking about changing a fraction into a decimal, let's picture these decimals as fractions. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a box and I'm going to separate it into 10 spaces. That's going to represent my tenth. Here we go. Now I have tenths. So if I'm looking at just my tenths, I can color in something like 3/10, for example. We'll do 3. Let me see if I can make that any larger. I'm not seeing it right now, so I'm just going to sloppily scribble in 3/10. All right, so there I have 3 out of 10. I would write that as 3/10 like this, a 3 in the tenths place. Remember when we're talking about decimals that after the decimal point we have tenths, then we have 100ths, then we have 1,000ths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths, millionths. All right, so if I wanted to take and now say, what if I had thousands, for example? Let's take an example of 34 or sorry, not thousands, hundredths, 34 hundredths. Okay, so if I did this, I would have, let me write this out, 34 100ths. I would have 3 in the tens place, so I know I could fill in 3 tenths again. But how would I make that extra 4 thousandths? Well, now I have separated my groupings into 100 pieces. So now I can just take 4 100ths, and I think I said thousandths again. Sorry about that. So now I have 3 tenths here and 4 100ths here, and together that makes 34 hundredths, because if you counted all of these boxes, you would actually have 30 boxes here and 4 boxes here to make 34 hundredths, and that's why we call it 34 hundredths, even though it's 3 in the tenths place and it's 4 in the hundredths place. Alright, so let's look at these two. First, let's decide what are these decimals written out. So I'm noticing that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tenths. So I could write 7 in the tenths place. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hundredths. So I could write 5 in the hundredths place. And this one I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the tenths place. When you draw out the picture, it's really easy to see that 9 tenths is bigger than 75 hundredths. Think about this as money too. If we added a 0 here, we could think of this as 75 cents and 90 cents, and then it's a little bit easier for you to picture in your mind. Alright, speaking of picturing in your mind, picture 28 hundredths or 0.28. So we're thinking about it as 28 hundredths. So I'm thinking in my head that there's a 2 in the tens place. So I'm thinking of 2 long orange lines. Then I have an 8 in the hundredths place. So I'm thinking about 8 more little spots colored in yellow. Is this decimal going to be more or less than half? Maybe you're thinking about money too, and halfway to $1 is 50 cents. Okay? If we add 6 hundredths more, remember hundredths are the little tiny boxes, would the amount shaded be more or less than half? Alright, so let's make a picture of it. Here's my 28 hundredths. Is it more or less than half? Far less than half, right? Let's add 6 to it. Here's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's harder to see when I draw it with my pen, but there you can see that we're still less than half. So you have to kind of think about what size is that position in my place value. Alright, lastly, I want you to go on your Cornell notes and I want you to shade these pictures in. Be careful on that last one. You're going to shade in 5 tenths and then you're going to add to it 3 more hundredths. Kind of like we took our 28 hundredths and we add in our 3 more tenths. Alright, there is no NICU check for tonight, but tomorrow when you come to class, we will check your answers. Have a good night.